Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm joined by special guest Gabriel to talk Bears and just some general football things after Thursday night football last night. How you feeling, Greg?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm excited. I'm glad we got the win. I'm really optimistic about Sunday night football. I know a lot of people have already written this off as an L, and I don't really care if we win. Well, I care if we win or lose, but I'm not going to overreact if we win or lose one game. But I'm actually optimistic heading into this one. I think we have a good chance.
Well, my whole feeling going into the first part of the season was through the first four, you try to divide the season into quarters, and through the first four, go 2-2, and they're in good shape. Uh, they won the first game, so that's a step in the right direction. This might be the toughest game of the four,
Okay.
being on the road, and it's the home opener for Houston. But other than that, they're going to match up better. The Tennessee Titans were a tough matchup. Tennessee's defensive line against the Bears' offensive line because of those elephants they have in the middle. Where Houston is strong is not in the middle; it's on the edges, and so it's a really changes your game plan. I think you can work the middle. They Bears didn't even try to run inside that often. The first play of the game, they did off tackle and got 8 yards. But the thing that was bad, and part of it is just one mistake. You look at the first couple drives, they're moving the ball and then they stall. Some of it was their own fault. You had 3 times where they had drive starts on the opponent's side of the 50-yard line, and really I think one time got 3. Maybe they didn't even get anything out of any of those drives. You had 2 punt returns and 1 kickoff return. When you start a drive on your opponents between the 45 and 50, you've got to come away with some points.
At least 3.
Yeah, you got to. But I wrote about this last week going in. What happened as far as Caleb's inconsistency didn't surprise me in the slightest. It happens to just about every rookie quarterback. You go through history, not just first overall picks, but first round picks. They struggle. And Andrew Luck, who was the first overall pick, I mean, that team went to the playoffs as a rookie, but they lost their first 2 games. And the next team to go to the playoffs with a rookie leading them was Houston last year with Stroud. So that was 2012 to 2023. That's 12 football seasons.
And the last time that a number 1 pick won his debut was way back in 2002.
Like 2002. Yeah,
Derek Carr.
22 years ago.
David Carr.
Yeah, 22 years ago. So it's you grow. First of all, I rewatched the game this morning. I think he was pressing. He was hurrying some throws. He didn't have his footwork right. I think just a lot of it was natural adrenaline flowing, anxiety, try to do good. And when you put yourself in that situation, sometimes you tighten up and then you don't play as good as you want to play. But overall, the important thing is that they won the game. And we know it's a team game. The offense or the defense and the special teams both had excellent games. So now let's get the offense going. I think the offense will be better this week. I don't think there's an issue with whether or not Keenan Allen plays. I think he's going to play with veterans. You hold him out of practice. You want him to play in the game. You'll hold him out of practice during the week. Rome's a different story, being that he is a rookie and he's already missed 2 days. I mean, we're going to know in a couple hours, probably after this show gets over, whether he's going to play this week. But I would say they'll probably list him as questionable. He didn't hurt his knee that bad. What happens, he woke up with some swelling and some soreness. But that takes time to work its way out. The swelling's got to work its way out. The soreness has got to work its way out. And if he can't play fast, then there's no sense in playing him.
You talking about Rome or Keenan?
Rome.
Yeah. I think there's no reason to rush Rome back. I think this was a playoff game, I think Rome could probably play. I don't think it was a major injury, but I think we should probably rest him at least a week or two. But I'm on the same board with you with Keenan. A lot of people are like, what are we going to do without Keenan and Rome this week? I think Keenan Allen is playing. His day was listed as rest. Hopefully, Keenan practices at least limited today.
Yeah, even if it's not, so what?
Yeah. He's one of the few guys. I said that in a video earlier this week. He's one of the few guys on the roster. I don't think he really needs to practice. And people were quick to counter that with, well, he does. Look at how he dropped that end zone touchdown. That ball was
that's
tipped.
a 1 in 100.
Something that people have not mentioned on that one. A lot of people say how that ball wasn't caught. The ball was tipped when Caleb threw it at the line. It had a weird spin on it, and it hit the point. The tip of the ball hit Keenan in the hand, which isn't something that you deal with a lot as a wide receiver. So it was a weird ball. Yes, Keenan probably should have caught it. Yes, I agree with that.
As long as he's played, he should have caught it.
He's caught a ton of passes, and I'm not worried about Keenan.
No. I just think you look at the people criticizing the offensive line, and rightfully so. The interior of the offensive line got beat. Tackles weren't that bad.
I thought tackles played great, honestly.
Yeah. All told, though, generally speaking, when you look at it, it was always like one breakdown. It's not like you had three guys. It was one guy. There was a sack where the guy looped around, and the center, Shelton, went to help out, and he should have been a tad bit more patient, because as soon as he went to help out, that's when the guy came across on the loop. Yep. So little stuff like that.
I showed that there was 2 plays with Shelton that people talked about a lot. That was one of them, and that one was completely on Shelton. He's got to recognize the stunt, and there was no need to try. I like how he was trying to help. I like it. He was staying active. He saw Jeffrey Simmons. He went to go lay out an extra hit on Jeffrey Simmons, and I think Darnell Wright, honestly, on that play, I watched this so many times. Darnell Wright recognized the stunt, and he actually tries to go around the right guard and center and make that block. There's just too many bodies there, and he can't get through, and he gets kind of caught up. But yeah, on the other one that people were talking about with Shelton, he was tripped on that one by Tevin Jenkins, the one where he fell onto his back. Yeah, that one he was tripped. So not hugely worried. What I actually noticed from
Shelton, got beat bad by I think it was Sweat one time. And hey, that stuff's going to happen. And when you look at it, Sweat probably had 75 pounds on Shelton. How often is that matchup going to occur besides one time? Yeah. Because you look at his play. You got to look at his play, what he did with the Rams. He started 32 games the last 2 years for the Rams and really played consistent, good football. So
I thought he was what it is. Really good as a run blocker. His run blocking was a lot better than his pass blocking. He looked really well. He was getting blocks on T'Vondre Sweat in the run game, where he would get the reach block, get across his body, and seal him off and open up a hole, which Shelton is a little guy. Like, compared to
well, they say he's 285, but he's more than that.
Well, I'm not saying he's little. I'm saying, but compared to T'Vondre Sweat, when those two are locked up in the run game, you'd expect Sweat to bully him, and it didn't happen as much as I thought it would, especially in the run game. So I'm excited to see what Coleman Shelton can do, how he can bounce back next week. My biggest worry right now is at right guard. I don't know what's going on there. Nate looked confused at times, and Ryan Bates was okay, but Ryan Bates didn't look special in the second half to me either.
Well, I think a lot of it is neither one of those guys got hardly any reps in the preseason. And that, to me, is huge. There was a play, too. Tevin looked like he got run over because he was on his back. His left foot got cut up with Braxton Jones. So he basically tripped on his own player. Yes. So sometimes where a play looks like a guy looks horrible, that's not really the case when you watch the tape.
Yeah, the tape reveals a lot of that, and I was one of the ones to call Coleman Shelton out for the play he tripped on. He looked like Sam Mustipher to me. I called him out live during the game, and I was like, he looked like Sam Mustipher. I went back and watched it on tape, and I was like, Tev tripped him, so I felt a little bad. Had to call that one out. But I like what Doug Van Dorn says here. He wouldn't be surprised to see Matt Pryor take some snaps at right guard. And I was actually
Wouldn't surprise me either.
I'm surprised it didn't happen last week. I thought if you were going to rotate Nate Davis out of the game, the guy I like Ryan Bates. I think he's real. I think he could end up playing some center this year. He could take over that right guard job. But with how big their interior defensive line was, Matt Pryor is probably our biggest offensive lineman. He's a big guy. And putting him there next to Darnell Wright, I think would have helped. But yeah, Doug, I agree with that.
The only thing where I would argue with you a little bit, and I get it, because you want your best guys in. But if a tackle went down, now you know what I mean? Because he's the backup tackle.
That's where I'm a little confused on, because he didn't get as many reps there. I didn't see him get a single rep at left tackle.
But he's done it in his career. He started a lot of games.
But I did see him get some reps at right tackle. So
yeah,
a little bit both there. To answer Barry's question, yes, the Bears are practicing today. We should find out in a couple of hours the status.
They usually practice a little earlier on Friday.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say it's going to be after 2:00. We're going to find out the status. And Flus will also talk today, being it's a Friday. And he'll probably say game time decision. That's my bet. Because why give your opponent any ammo they don't need?
And we know how the coaches are in the NFL. We just saw it with Shanahan, knowing that Christian McCaffrey was going to be out as early as Friday night. He didn't tell the media until an hour before the game Sunday.
Right.
But Jordan Mason let it slip in his post-game press conference. Felt bad for the kid, young running back.
Yeah, I know. It's like he got caught up in a situation he didn't need to get caught up in. And part of it was his own fault, but, you got to just be – but you can throw it on the coaching staff too. You say, hey, they're going to ask you about this. Here's what you say. Yep. You got to be proactive.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things I wanted to quickly bring up is I don't know how much you watched the tape, but Braxton Jones. I thought you mentioned how both of our tackles played well. I thought Darnell Wright was our best offensive lineman last week. I spent a ton of time watching the O-line. Darnell was incredible as a pass blocker. His one problem, I showed it off in one of my all-22s, he whiffed in the run game. He whiffed on like 3 or 4 blocks, where if he connects with those blocks, he probably opens up some big holes. There was a couple he missed on linebackers, one on a corner, and a couple of them led directly to the tackles.
Well, here, we got to be fair, though, on a couple of these things, and I'm not sticking up for anybody.
Oh, yeah.
What the defensive coordinator did for Tennessee, and he used to work for us. He was a pro scout when I was there for 4 years. Good guy, really good guy. He was doing a lot of run blitzing, and even in the pass game, doing a lot of stuff. Bringing guys from weird places. But there was a ton of run blitzes. I looked at a couple plays I'm playing. It was run plays that got hit for loss, and there's defensive backs in the backfield. So you had stuff called, and you were overloading, so you didn't have enough guys to block what was there. And I get it, and what he went out to do is, look, I'm going to take away the run game, and I'm going to take away Caleb's ability to roll out. I'm going to keep him in the pocket. So now if he's going to beat us, he's going to beat us from the pocket, and they're not going to be able to run the ball. He basically succeeded in everything he wanted to do.
Yeah, 100%. And my bigger takeaway from that is I thought Darnell was awesome, but Braxton had a great game, especially as a run blocker. I showed there were 2 or 3 plays where he looked special. He would help coming off the line, stick with one arm, and then get to the second level and dominate someone. But he had another play, one that was an outside run by DeAndre Swift, where he goes out, helps on a double team with Gerald Everett, bops this guy off his block, and then immediately turns and bops the linebacker and basically takes 2 guys out of the play and opens up a huge hole for DeAndre Swift. I love what Braxton's able to do. And
I think his run blocking has always been good, Swifty. You go back to last year, and where he's gotten better, and part of it is his own doing, and that he knew what his weakness was. His weakness was he didn't have the lower body bulk and strength, and that hurt him with his anchor ability. And he's worked on that in the offseason. Because I watched it. There's one play where he got pushed back, but he didn't get pushed back far enough to say that he got bull rushed. He got, he might have gave up a yard or two, but hey, that's going to happen.
Yeah, no.
The important
100%.
thing is the guy he's blocking was not a factor in the play.
Yeah, and his pass blocking, I thought he did give up a sack. He did have a false start, but I thought his pass blocking is improved. They tried bull rushing him multiple times. He did give up some ground, but his anchor is noticeably stronger. Not quite as strong as Darnell Wright's. I think Darnell's one of the more powerful.
Two different body types.
Mm-hmm. But
Braxton is a high cut guy, and he doesn't have a big ass.
I thought he improved a lot though, and there is. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna try to show one play here, where this was a play I showed off from Braxton a lot this week, and I just want to show like what he did to this guy. And this is like he learned this from this move right here. He learned this from Darnell Wright, how he kind of snatches the guy, throws him to the ground like that.
Right.
Like that is so impressive. And I love what Braxton's been able to do as an offensive lineman. I think he's getting a lot better, and I'm so excited for his growth because he's a guy who, especially national media and probably half our fan base, really hasn't came around on.
They don't understand. You know what? If you don't understand offensive line play, and really understand traits, you're going to criticize. Mm-hmm. And I've been saying this going back to his rookie year. You go out and spend a lot of money scouting to find that guy. The type of athleticism, and he is one of the better athletes playing left tackle in this league. Yes, he had faults, but look where he came from. Southern Utah. I've been to Southern Utah. Might be the worst FCS program in the country. If it's not the worst, it's close to the worst. Doesn't have, it's not like this guy grew up playing at a Pac-12 school or a Big Ten school or whatever, where they have, good development, good weight programs. It's like he had to do all this shit himself. And he had weaknesses, none of which were really his own fault, but he had the natural traits. And so it takes time to develop those traits. A credit goes to the Bears coaches, and probably Simo more than anybody, is that he saw it. And so the only way this guy's going to get good is if I got to play him. And he played every snap as a rookie. Now, he missed 5 games with his neck injury last year, parts of, 4 full games, parts of another. But that's going to pay off. I mean, the amount of experience he has, now you're going to see him grow into, I don't know if he's ever going to be a Pro Bowl player, but he's going to be a really good, better than rank and file type left tackle in the league.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's probably one of my biggest matchups and keys to the game this weekend is how our offensive tackles play, because the Titans, their strength on the defensive line was probably the interior. That's why our interior looked worse on our line. But this week going against the Texans,
the edges,
Will Anderson on one side, Danielle Hunter, the big time free agent addition on the other. Now, the one thing I don't like about this matchup is they usually have Will Anderson on the left and they have Danielle Hunter on the right. They've only played together one game. So there's not a ton of tape on it. But I wanted to see Will Anderson against Darnell Wright, because if we remember right, that was one of the big things about Darnell coming out pre-draft. His tape against Alabama where he shut down Will Anderson. He shut down Will Anderson. So I'd love to see.
On the positive side too, I mean, well, they'd be going against different guys. Like Braxton's played against Danielle Hunter.
Yeah. That's why right now they're swapped. So Anderson's going to be going against Braxton and Hunter is going to be going against Darnell Wright most of the game. But
Darnell's played against Darnell Wright has played against Hunter too.
Yeah, last year with the Vikings.
Yeah. So it's not like he's never done it.
Yep.
The new guy on the block really is Anderson, because even though Hunter's in a different defense, you know what the player is. You played against him.
Yeah, but that's my key. That's one of my keys to this week's game is how those tackles, who I thought both played really well in week one, how they hold up against two premier edge rushers. That's going to be the key to our offense getting some going. If they get wrecked by Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, it's going to be hard for Shane Waldron to scheme something up and have
Well,
this
he
offense.
might have to do some chipping. He might have
Mhm.
to, do some chipping with a tight end or a back, which is fine.
Danielle
What
Hunter.
Caleb's got to do is get the ball out of his hand faster. Like there were some plays when you look at it, he had some real quick throws. They got to do more of that.
Yep. I get his name's Danielle Hunter, not Danielle. I'll say I call him Danielle because he was on the
I've
Vikings.
done
So
it for years, Danielle.
call him a
So
girl name. He's Danielle to me.
it's like
But that's
Danielle Manning.
yeah,
That
like
we used to
Danielle
have.
Manning. That was one, and that's the former Bear too. Danielle
Right.
Manning, a player I loved. Even though without Mike Brown in that Super Bowl, we really missed him. But that's the key to the game this week for me. I think another key is going to be JJ. I think JJ is going to be on Stephon Diggs. If he can shut him down, he can slow down that offense a little bit.
You
And
got to
JJ
get
was the
physical. And I watch Diggs a lot because I'm a Buffalo fan, being that I'm,
mhm.
from Buffalo. My kids got season tickets. You got to get physical with Diggs. He's a great route runner, not a good route runner, a great route runner. But you got to get physical with him. And JJ has that type of game.
That's why I think JJ is one of the few guys who can match up with him. And if he can play like he did last week and continue that kind of play, because not only was he great in pass coverage, he was great shedding blocks in the screen game and
Mm-hmm.
attacking the running game. Anything that went to the edge, JJ made two key tackles on the edge where he blew by a blocker, made him look silly, and then came through with a big tackle for a stop. And JJ had a huge game. I'm loving what I saw from JJ.
Yeah, I think that the defense as a whole, they were lining up early, and Biggs brought this out in his column on Monday. They're lining up in a normal 4-3 look, and the ends were at more of a 7 technique type thing, and they moved them out to a 9. It made it more difficult to block them on those stretch plays that they were doing, and took away what Houston was doing, or what Tennessee was doing early in the game. And all you got to do is make little adjustments like that. But they except for like 2 plays in the second half, they totally shut down the run game. And really, without doing much blitzing, for the most part, 4 guys put a hell of a lot of pressure on that quarterback.
Our front four, I thought, and people were down on Montez Sweat. I thought Sweat had a great game. He
Oh
drew
yeah,
a ton of attention.
it's sacks.
You're talking
You got
about chips. He was getting, there were plays where they'd have the tight end hit him with a big chip right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he get by the tight end, he'd have the tackle and the running back waiting
Right.
there for him. So as soon as he engages with the tackle, the running back's
Because
coming
they
up.
didn't. What happened now? Here's what happened. So now the other side's free,
Mm-hmm.
and the
And
new
those
guy
guys had
comes in
big
and
games.
Taylor gets 2 sacks, right? So
DeMarcus
now they got to say,
Walker had
oh
a
shit.
big game. Javon
Yep.
Dexter had a big game.
So now you gotta, because Taylor did so good last week, now you got to count for him, and that's actually gonna help free up Sweat.
And that's my key on the other side of the ball. When we're on defense, Montez Sweat, because the Texans have a pretty good offensive line, and their left tackle is elite. Laramie Tunzel is one of the best left tackles in the game, but their right tackle, Titus Howard, he's average, and he's the
Right.
guy who's going to be tasked with blocking Montez Sweat. So
Right.
Sweat is an X factor in this one. If he can make them, they're going to have to chip him. They're going to have to send help over there, and he has to make it that way and beat the out of Titus Howard. That's a key to the game on that side of the ball for me.
Hey, look at it. On paper, they're a lot better team than Indianapolis, and that was a game. I haven't watched the tape of it. I just followed what was going on. Indianapolis gave them all they could handle, and so Tennessee. I think when you look at the matchup, the Tennessee defense against the Bears offense was a tougher matchup situation. I think this one works to the Bears' favor a little bit better. Obviously, we got to play the game and see what's going to happen. But, I like where the Bears are. You usually see a big jump between week 1 and week 2, especially when you have, last night. You can use the Bills week 1. They really struggled offensively, especially in the first half against Arizona, and then came out the second half and played good. And yesterday, different story. They were a lot stronger.
Yeah. I mean, James Cook looked awesome last night. So
Yeah.
teams are going to come out and look better. The Texans the first week relied heavily on Joe Mixon. I think he had 30 carries for, I can check the stats, but I think he had like 140.
Yeah, and they said they're going to continue that,
yards.
but
yeah.
That's what's going to happen is he's not getting it. Mixon's not getting any younger.
Yeah.
And you're going to, and what happens with backs, when you give them workloads like that, you get into the second half of the season. Now, we're not going to worry about the second half of the season. We got to stop tomorrow or on Sunday, but that wears backs down. They're less effective than in the second half of the season.
Yeah, that's 33 touches week 1 for Joe Mixon. He had 30 carries, 159 yards. He was putting in work, 5.3 a carry, had a touchdown, and had 3 catches for 19 yards. But if there is one good thing about Mixon, I don't know if he has quite the breakaway speed that some of these other running backs have, especially at his age.
He's got decent speed.
He didn't have a carry over 20 yards.
He's a pretty strong runner.
Mm-hmm. But he's a guy who's tough to bring down. I think we match up well against running backs like this. In the past, at least in the Flus era, the running backs that typically beat us are the speed guys. And Tony Pollard was the same thing. He's more of a speed guy. Now, I will say this, something I noticed about watching the tape. I don't know if you watch much of the drive when they went right down the field and then Tony Pollard had the 20-yard touchdown run. That was Austin Booker was in that entire drive. And the Titans did not. They ran straight at him 4 straight plays. Now, it wasn't just straight runs. They had a reverse go that way. Then they had a toss. Then they had a screen. And then they pitched it that way. But they basically went right at Austin Booker. And I thought he got dominated in the run game and played a lot worse than Darrell Taylor. So
notice he didn't play much in the second half.
Yeah. I'd say we maybe hold back a little bit on the Austin Booker hype. He needs to.
You know what? You need that stuff. They're gonna. He's a smaller guy, so you're looking for something that you can do. And like I said earlier, they were lining the ends in a little bit tighter, and when they moved him out, but Booker never got that chance when they were moved out.
Mm-hmm.
So
you wanted him to come in as a situational pass rusher. That's what I would have liked to see. They had him in for like a whole drive. And the Titans, credit to the Titans coaching staff. As soon as Booker came in the game, they didn't waste time at all. They ran directly at him from the snap he was in the game until they scored the touchdown. So it was smart play by them. But yeah, I think that's a coaching decision there. If I want to put Booker in, let's put him in on the 3rd and longs. Let him pin his ears back and go after the quarterback. Don't ask him to stop the run in his first career game. So
it gets down to this, and I said this on my other show a million times, and it goes back. I had a long conversation one day at an airport with Marv Levy when he was, we're coming back from the Senior Bowl flying. Now, this was before everybody had private jets, to go back and forth for the Upper Echelon people. So we had to fly on Delta Airlines going from the Senior Bowl back up to Buffalo. And I was with the Giants at the time, but I was friendly with a lot of the Buffalo people because I started my career there. But anyway, Marv and I were having a good talk, and he says, the most important thing to remember is you got to let rookies be rookies. He said, I expect nothing out of a rookie. And if I get something, that's a bonus. Where I expect them to excel is year 2.
Yeah.
And he goes, if you go with that philosophy, you'll be fine. Let them do what they can do. And if it's good enough to play, fine, play them. But don't expect a whole lot.
Yeah, I think a lot of times in the NFL, something I've noticed watching my whole life is the biggest jump that most players make in their careers is year 1 to year 2.
Absolutely.
That's why I was so big on Gervon Dexter, Tyreek Stevenson, and Darnell Wright this year. And if week 1 is any indication, all 3 of those players stood out. Tyreek had a big game. He had the pick 6. Gervon Dexter had 3 pressures, 2 quarterback hits, and a sack. And Darnell Wright, I thought, played awesome. So
now, okay, now you see, here's a great example because we brought up Booker and Booker had some struggles. Well, look at some of the struggles these guys had last year, early in the season. Who are they throwing at all the time? They weren't throwing on JJ. They were going at Stevenson, right? And if there was going to be a pass rush situation where they wanted to screw up somebody, yeah, they tried Wright early in the year, and Dexter, he wasn't getting anywhere near the snaps he got now because he was playing tall, he was slow off blocks, he had come from a 2-gap scheme, but you learn how to play, and then you get that much better. Now, part of that is not only did Dexter get better, but he took care of his body. He got stronger. He got leaner.
he's an awesome
he's playing lower. That sack he had. I mean, he just separated two people that were trying to
split a double team him.
Yeah, and looked like a monster man on that play. So it's. I think you're going to see the same thing as we go along with Booker. Because you saw too many preseason, but you saw too many things where you saw some big things. Now, I'm saying that too. Hardy played pretty decent when he was in there.
Oh yeah, Hardy he looked pretty good, and he had that punt block.
And he's also been in the league now 3 years, so that
Carl asks, does that same question with that rookie talk? He said, does that apply to the quarterback position?
Absolutely, but they made the decision. I wrote an article last week about the history of first-round quarterbacks. Very few of them do good.
It's something I talked about a lot before.
Trevor Lawrence, they won 4 games his rookie year. Went to playoffs, I think, his second year. Guy in Cincinnati, 4 or 5 games they won his first year. Yeah. And then went to a Super Bowl the second year. Caleb's going to go through his growing pains. I think Caleb probably has more natural talent than any of those guys had. Now it's just I like the way he's just handling it. Like he was immediately after the game, he was talking to J-Mac, and I thought he wasn't being humble enough. But then when he went out in front of the regular media, which is maybe only 5-6 minutes later, he totally changed that. And you got to say, yeah, I didn't play good. I'm going to play better. But he took accountability for the mistakes that he made, but he also shows the confidence that he has. He says, I'm going to get better. And he is.
Yeah. And Carl responded with, that's why he believes the Bears have no serious expectations this year, playoffs, etc. And while I say most likely
the fans do,
they're not going to overreact.
Fans do, but
they're not going to overreact no matter what our win-loss record is. But they do want to see better football team on the field. And this is a team, I think if we go back 5 or 6 years, we probably wouldn't have any playoff expectations at all. I think the NFL has changed a little bit with the 2 additional wild card teams in each league. It's easier to make the playoffs. A lot of years when you go 8-8 and 10, 15 years ago, you're eliminated in week 10 or 11 because there just weren't that many playoff spots. But with the extra playoff spots now, it's not that hard, where if you can win a couple more games than expected to sneak in as a number 7 seed. So when you're talking playoffs, I think the expectations have changed a little bit. It's a little bit easier to get in. So I think you should always at least try to aim for that.
It gets down to, if you want to get in the playoffs, you got to win your division.
Mm-hmm.
The worst, they play 6 division games. You got to win. You got to say you're going to win 5 of them, or at worst 4, 4-2, or 5-1.
Mm-hmm. And that's where I think the schedule helps us out a little bit, because we don't play any of our division games until after week 10 of the football season.
What's funny is that that whole particular division is pretty much the same way.
Yeah.
So it's not just Chicago.
So the division is going to be, I've called it all year. It's going to be a bloodbath at the end of the year, but I think it plays out better for us because we have so long for Caleb to get his feet underneath him and get
Yeah.
into a groove where if he can start playing a lot better football by the time we get into those division games.
By the time we get to the divisional games, he is a veteran.
And at that point, if our defense can stay healthy and keep playing at this level,
Yeah.
why wouldn't we expect to at least try to sneak into the playoffs? And that's where, yeah, this year doesn't, whether or not we make the playoffs has no effect on how excited I am for this team's future. Caleb's a rookie.
What I want to,
Biggest growth is
playoffs
next
isn't
year.
important to me. Having a winning record is important to me.
Okay.
Okay, which is 2 more wins than last year.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
And when you have games like this, when what we just saw from as Bears fans, we've seen so many times over the years with no matter what goes right or wrong in the game, we usually find a way to lose the close games like this. It doesn't matter how good our team plays. Think about the last couple of years. How many games not only did we blow leads in the fourth quarter, but
Last
then we
year,
have comebacks fall
3 of them or
just
4 of them.
short. We'd get the ball, with down by 3 or down by 7 with 2 minutes left in the game and have a chance to tie the game or take the lead, and we'd never get it done. We've lost all these close games. Our offense did nothing last week, and our defense and special teams showed they were good enough that they can at least keep us in the games. They're not going to win every game like that if our offense does nothing, but if they can keep us in games and this offense can show even a little bit of improvement, I'm super excited, and I think we have a shot no matter what.
Yeah, no question.
If the defense plays like this, we can compete with anybody in the NFL on the right day. Now, if our offense plays like that, we can't. But good point by Nick. Will Levis definitely. This is something I will touch on. Will Levis could have. I'll say this. I said this to someone else. Will Levis could have taken the snap and fallen down onto his back 20 times in a row instead of throwing the ball, and the Titans probably would have won that game. So, yes, Will Levis's mistakes definitely are what won that game for us. The forced fumble, 2 interceptions. He's a guy who he gave us a chance to win that game. Without that pick 6, we probably have no shot at winning the game. If he just takes the sack there and they punt, our offense has to drive 80-plus yards to get that touchdown, and it would have wasted a lot more time off the clock. So, Will Levis definitely kept us in the game, but we're not expecting the offense to play like that. That's the point. The defense did what it had to do to get the victory, and that gave me a lot of confidence going forward.
Hey, there's going to be games where the defense isn't going to be good and the offense is it's going to happen. The offense is going to put points up.
And the Titans have a strong defense.
Yep.
We're going to go against teams. I think the Panthers game is the one I'm excited for. Once we get to that Panthers game, I think that's the one where even if we've struggled in the first 4 games overall on offense, by the time we get to week 5 and we're going against Carolina, that's a get-right game. That's a game where this offense can finally start clicking. There's a lot to just be excited about.
I'll tell you, the way Carolina played, and they got a new coaching staff, and they're going to get better. Mm-hmm. But just look at the way that game played and thinking, well, we got the 33rd pick.
And that's a big. There's a guy. Someone was talking about it on Twitter, but one of my favorite prospects in college football, and a guy I actually think the Bears could have interest in next year. Usually, you don't see a lot of this, but running back position. I do think. I know Swift is here. I know he's on a 3-year deal, but we could draft a running back in the 2nd round next year, or even 3rd.
I don't see Poles doing that.
I love
his
Ashton
whole.
Genty.
I know.
Have you seen the Boise State kid? Oh my!
Yeah, but he might go in the 1st. He might be the guy that goes in the 1st.
People are saying but you know how running backs are.
Sometimes I did him. I do some work
this.
for agents. I'd have to look up my report, but I know 2. I gave him a big grade.
Ooh, I'd love to get Genty with that Panthers pick, but yeah, no, I get it. We probably won't take a running back that high, but if that guy is there next year when we're on the board,
well, let's see what Taylor does going forward and how Booker develops, because I was thinking going in that you might have to use between the 2 twos and the 1, you're going to have to get an interior offensive lineman and an edge, and then the other one's kind of like a wild card. And depending on what you do with Keenan Allen, you might have to get a wide receiver. And then obviously, free agency is going to work into this too, and what they do in free agency. But it's if Taylor keeps playing like he did in game 1 and Booker develops, that takes edge out of the picture now. So now you've got maybe 2 offensive linemen.
And if Darrell Taylor keeps playing like he
that's
does,
what I'm talking.
He's a guy.
It takes edge out of the picture.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy, if he continues, because not only was he good as a pass rusher last week, but he also looked really good against the run in his opportunity.
Yeah, everything the Seattle people were riding me about at the day after that trade, saying he can't play the run, he can't play the run. I said,
so many comments, but the Seahawks fans said he can't play the run. I was like, hey, I saw something different last week.
I saved some of those, so I tweeted him back.
But even
Sunday night, I said I thought he couldn't play against the run.
I thought that's not even why we got him to get after the quarterback, though, not to play the run.
And he gave up a 6th-round pick. Gave up a 6th-round pick. You know what? Not one guy I went back to even responded because I had him.
Greg, you're going at people on Twitter over it, huh?
Hey, you got to have some fun every once in a while. I'm too old not to.
Yeah, you got to have some fun, man. You got to have some fun. But I did want to. I know you wanted to touch on this at some point. Last night, Thursday Night Football, Tua. Really sad thing. Tua's a guy who's had a lot of concussions in his career already, and a guy who
I think he's had 2. Or
two big ones. Big ones. I think he had one. Did he not have one at Alabama too? Maybe not. But the one in Cincinnati was scary.
Well, the one yesterday was scary. And I guess he was out cold for a little bit. The thing that
scared me most about it is someone else said it. An NFL player, Monte Te'o. He said it on Good Morning Football this morning. He's a guy who's known Tua since he was a kid. And he said it himself. He said the hit on Tua was not it was not one of those hits.
No, his helmet.
And you go,
his helmet went into Damar Hamlin's chest, like right in here.
Yeah, Tua put his head down
right
into it, and Cece says Tua's had 4 concussions, maybe even 5, and that makes it even worse. But it was a sad thing to see. I immediately questioned before I even knew it was a bad hit. I was like, why are you putting your head down?
Right.
Going
that's
he was already 4 yards past the first down marker too. So
just
it's not
slide.
It was just such a, oh man, so unfortunate. But I know Greg has said you've had concussions yourself.
I've had
did want to talk about. What are your thoughts?
6 that I know of.
6 that he knows of.
Okay. Which means I probably had more. But I had 3, my first 3.
Mm-hmm.
I was in 9th and 10th grade. And I had 3 within probably a 16-month period. 2 of which I didn't get knocked out, but I had what a common thing when you have a more severe concussion is that you get into an amnesia type state where you just can't remember from 1 second to the next.
Mm-hmm.
My first and third were that, where it's like, it takes a good 45 minutes to an hour to come out of that state. Now, again, if I told y'all what year this was, let me see, I'm a freshman in high school, first one I had in a football game. So this is 1965. That's how long ago it was.
Yeah.
And the other one was, so it was the fall of 65, the spring of 66, and then at a basketball game that next winter. So it'd be 66, 67. I can't remember if it was before Christmas or after the new year, but I had one more in a basketball game where I hit my head on the floor, and that one knocked me a little bit silly. So, but what it's going to get, you see all these comments. Here's what I was trying to, or wanted to point out. Well, he's got to retire. Maybe he should retire. You know what? Nobody's qualified to say that except the doctors. And they have the people that they have working on these things. They're neurologists, they're specialists. They're going to put him through all the testing. I would say, being that he was out cold for a little bit, the minimum he's going to miss is 2 more games, and maybe more than that. But that's going to be the minimum, and then it's going to be, if they find through the testing that he's going to be prone to this, and that question is there, then maybe that is something to consider. But I don't want to be the person leading the charge saying he's got to do this, he's got to do that. No, it's his decision, and it's the doctor's decision, and nobody else's. And you got to leave it that way, because it becomes a very personal thing. It's the way he makes a living, and if he wants to continue getting hit, that's his choice. Same thing like a fighter. How many times do fighters get knocked out or get concussions? They might get a couple concussions in the matter of one fight, but they continue to do it. So, you hear about it a lot more. Remember, I said to my doctor, and this was a couple of years ago, and when this stuff started to come to light, I said, Howard, I know I've had 6. Should I be worried about this? He goes, you're all right now, aren't you? And I said, yeah. He goes, well, then what are you worried about?
Oh man, things have changed so much now. I mean, oh man,
No, this was, and I'm not going to tell you who my doctor is, but he's acclaimed in the Chicago area. But he goes, if you were having, in fact, what concerned me, because I had those little bit, is maybe you get into a dementia type problem or something like that, and especially at my age. But that hasn't happened. So now, and my sister has dementia. So, but that's, as far as I know, that's the only person in my family that's ever been afflicted by that. I think my parents died too. Not my mother, but my father. No, they all died too early that even reached that stage. But in fact, how about this? We'll have a gloomy show here. I was no male in my family had lived past 67. I'm the champ right now.
He's the champ with the concussions. See,
I'm 73, and I've lived. My brother died at 64.
Oh wow, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, my little sister died young.
But you know what? In fairness, all these people, they did it to themselves. My parents, my grandparents, they smoked, they drank a lot, and so they didn't live the lives, the healthy lives that we live. My brother, heavy smoker, heavy drinker. So he got afflicted with some things, and by 64 he's gone, and he had turned 64 like 2 weeks before. So I mean, he was a young guy.
Kenworth says, Greg, but your memory is great. Getting a compliment out there. Greg does have a
so far
memory for it.
I can't remember names sometimes on players.
I can't remember names, Greg.
Well, hell, that's it. I can remember the plays.
Yeah, hey, I mean that's something. When you go through so many players and NFL players and follow sports like we do, names come and go. There's even guys who recycle names. You'll have guys with the same names and be like, wait, there was a guy like that 15 years ago. So stuff like that happens. I'm never worried about names. But back to the Bears. We'll get back to the Bears. No more. I do say one more thing I'll say about Tua. I hope he takes care of his health first. I hope his family is by his side through this. And honestly, I hope he just takes care of himself and probably moves on from football, because more hits like that and we could have something really scary happen on the football field. And I hope he's okay. And there's more to life than just football. So Tua, get better. take care of yourself and your family. And the Dolphins, they probably need to sign another quarterback because
Well, McDonald said that this morning.
that was
We're
my
going.
biggest thing about it is after what happened with Tua a couple years ago, and he got injured, and they had to go into the playoffs with Skylar Thompson at quarterback, and he proved right then and there he's not a guy who can even compete in a playoff game. That team, they stunk. They looked awful. So
No,
why now 2 years later is he still your backup quarterback option? I can't believe they haven't tried to upgrade the position.
you know that private chat that you and I are both a member of.
Yeah.
Did you see what they're talking?
I did.
Maybe Pittsburgh's gonna trade Wilson down to him. It wouldn't shock me, but
Hey,
they and somebody said Tannehill. Tannehill started there. I don't think Tannehill would want to go back there.
he might.
Obviously,
Just
it's
because
different people.
Some
Yeah,
players
he
have
wants a job.
the affinity for the team that drafted him. So I thought about that, and I was like, maybe Tannehill would want to go back there, but because it didn't end
There was
that
people.
bad.
There was people pushing Tannehill. For Green Bay when Love went down, and who knows? They're trying to play this out like Love might play this week. There's no freaking way he's playing this week.
Oh no way.
I've seen enough strained MCLs to know that it's on a really mild one, it's 3 weeks, but most times it's 4 to 6.
Oh, yeah.
Which could knock them out, especially with Willis a quarterback. It could ruin their season before they even get going.
Yeah, if the Packers start out 0-5 or 0-6, if they can't,
even 1-5, 1-4,
jumping ahead of the gun. Yeah, but I'm rooting for that Packers downfall. I think we all are. Man. They're going against the Colts this week, and the Colts are a pretty good football team. I think they're a little bit underrated. They played the Texans well, and I'm hoping the Colts can punch the Packers in the face and knock them to 0-2. Yep. Especially Malik Willis starting quarterback.
Oh, no question. I mean, you got a guy that just hasn't proven he could play in the league, and not even as a solid backup. Ooh. So I'd rather have, a guy like if Caleb went down, I feel much more confident with a guy like Bagent than I would with Willis.
Marcus mentioned Joe Flacco. I'm pretty sure Flacco's on the Colts. I think he's
he is. He's Richardson's mentor on top of being their number 2.
Yeah. So I don't know if they'd give him up. That's a thing.
They're not giving him up.
You have to take care of that.
Brought him there for a reason.
Yeah, that's why I said I don't understand why these guys why they didn't address that in the offseason. This is something. Yeah, they could have traded a 6th-round pick for Justin Fields. I mean, they could have done that. I don't think Fields would have challenged.
It's going to turn into a starting 4th
job.
Feel very good that's going to be a 4th.
I hope so, man. We're all rooting for Justin Fields to get those 9 starts. Hopefully they can win again this week and he can stay in there because.
Well, the one thing we got to clarify though, people keep going. If he wins 9, we get the pick. Games doesn't matter. If he plays 9, they get the pick.
Yeah,
it's not games. It's percentage of plays.
But 9 games should do it because that's one more than half.
True.
There's 17 games. So if he starts and finishes 9 games, that should be enough. That's the hypothetical thing we're hoping for. But yeah, somewhere around.
You could, depending on what your offense does in certain games, you could do it in 7.
Yeah.
End up playing, 50% of the plays, but
play
it's 50% of the total offensive snaps.
Okay. Yeah. Good point. But yeah, I think 9 is the imaginary barrier I'm hoping for, where if he starts 9 games, he should be over 50%. That's a pretty safe assumption. But
the only thing is like some guys, he has yet to play a full season.
Yeah. And Russ hasn't played a full season in a bit either. So
no.
That's another thing where even if Russ had the job or gets the job back, that doesn't mean he's keeping the job all season.
He's gotten hurt in practice for Craig this year twice.
Yeah, I've said it since training camp, since we made the trade, that I think that both quarterbacks are going to start this year. I never thought it was going to be all Russ, And even right now, I don't think it's going to be all Justin. We can hope for that. And hopefully he can continue winning and playing great, or playing at least well enough to keep that starting job. But yeah, that's something we're all hoping for.
Yeah, no question. And you're also hoping for Ian to get a job.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's true too. I think Ian Cunningham, I think that's pretty safe to assume that I wouldn't mind keeping Ian for one more year. I'd love it, but yeah, I think it's pretty safe to assume he's going to be a general manager, and that's just something. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, in my opinion.
Well, it's a matter of, I mean, I think he's looking for the right situation. And I'll give you an example. George Payton, who took the job in Denver a few years ago, which ended up not being the right situation. George turned down or withdrew himself from candidacy 7 times in previous years. And because he kept saying, not the right situation. Another guy who's done that is Ed Dodds with the Colts, who's Ballard's assistant. And they look at it this way: I'm only getting one bite at the apple, and I need this situation to be perfect. Because if it's not, I'm going to be on the outside looking in. Now, yeah, you're going to make a lot of money. You're going to get at least a 4-year contract, and GMs now are starting out at around 3.5. So and maybe more now. So it's the money's going to be there for them, but the longevity isn't there, and very, very few, like the guy Tedesco goes from the Chargers to the Raiders in a matter of like a month. That's the outlier. That seldom happens.
And I don't know if you watched, there was an interview, I don't remember where it was from, but there was a Ryan Poles interview that I just saw the other day where he talked for about an hour, and he went into
I haven't looked at it. I got it on my phone. I haven't looked at it yet.
Yeah, I just watched it last night, so I'll tell you, I won't spoil the whole thing, but he goes into detail about
what you want. I watched like 10 minutes of it so far.
He was so disappointed to not get the Panthers general manager job. He said he went in there, he nailed the interview, he had a full plan, years how to tear that franchise down, how to fix that franchise, and he thought he was getting that job. And he said when the Panthers didn't hire him, it was a gut punch. He didn't even want to go back to Kansas City. He had all this excitement, and he was ready to move forward and change that Panthers franchise. And when they didn't hire him, he then had to go back, rain down, because he was ready to be the GM. He was ready to be that guy. And then he said, you got to go back to Kansas City, and then you're not the guy anymore. All those ideas you had, you got to throw out the window because you're not going to work for that team. And he said that was really, really hard for him. And hearing that, and it being the Panthers, and then what Ryan Poles did to the Panthers 2 years later, fleecing them, it was one of the best stories I've heard.
Well, and what's funny is that
karma full circle.
The guy who got the job, I worked with in New York, Scott Fitterer. And Scott's a good guy. But as it turned out, sometimes the best jobs are the ones you don't get. And in Ryan's case, it might have been a disaster. He might have been out the door already going to Carolina because they don't got the right owner. And the ownership's got to be right.
Got you. I'm going to link the video. For anyone who hasn't seen the interview, it is a YouTube video, so I am going to put the link in the chat. I'm pretty sure YouTube's okay with me linking to other YouTube videos. But if you guys want to bookmark that or watch that, I did put the link in the chat. That's the Ryan Poles 1-hour interview. It's pretty good listen. I listened to it yesterday. Some good details in there. And he does talk about some behind the scenes things and him getting cut by the Bears. He talks about him wanting that job with the Panthers. And then he talks about Ian Cunningham a lot too. He said the first 2 weeks after he got hired here, he was a nervous wreck because there's so much to do. You're hiring your head coach, you're doing all that. And he said his number one priority was getting his right-hand man in here, Ian Cunningham. Until he had Cunningham in here, he was not happy and he was a mess. His nerves were everywhere. It was a great listen. I loved it.
Yeah, he had told me, I met him Well, I met him when we had him, but
Hmm.
neither one of us really remember each other from back then
Yeah.
because he only had a cup of coffee. But I was talking to him for over an hour at the East-West game 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, and he was telling me about Stein. He said Stein was a godsend for him. He
Hmm.
said just helped him through so much stuff. And, part of that was, before Ian got here, just little procedural stuff and things like that. So, yeah, it's when you haven't done it, you find out that it's not as easy as you think. And you also find out is that because we used to joke about it, nobody comes knocking on your door with good news.
Yep. And that was another point you mentioned there, but Poles also talked about that, how some of the guys in the building when he got there were guys like Cliff Stein who, and then the other guy he called out was it Jeff King, the guy who's been moved up as in the
Yeah,
scouting department. He said
right.
there were guys in the building that you could tell wanted to be there. They wanted to help. They wanted to buy in. And then there were other guys, he said, after he met with them, he knew they were walking out of the room and going to look for jobs and applying at other places because they didn't want to be here. They didn't want to deal with polls. So there's some really cool tidbits as far as that as well. And then I got a final question here. I mean, this is pretty common, but do you think it'll take Caleb a few games to settle down and dial it in, or does it happen right away?
I can use Andrew Luck as an example. It was his third game. We can go back farther than that to Newton, and Newton had big numbers in his first game. Didn't win, but he had
Cam had
big
a
numbers.
huge first. I think he threw for
Yeah,
400 yards in
yeah.
his first career
And,
start.
and I remember he played here, and it might have been the third or fourth game, and it was like, wow, the stuff this guy's doing as a rookie. But part of it is, what's your offense doing, what's around you, um, and the confidence that you have in yourself. And that's where I don't worry. He's got confidence in himself. He's always had confidence in himself. So it's, yeah, I liked after the game. He said, was this one of the worst games you ever had? And right away he comes back with, no, I think when we played Cole Komet's team
Notre Dame,
last
yeah.
year, that
Yeah.
might have been the worst thing,
He
and
threw 3
that
interceptions
game
in
was
that one,
horrible.
yeah.
He threw 3 interceptions in the first half in that game.
Yep.
And
He definitely didn't play that bad Sunday. So
no, he actually had some nice throws. I think he was just a little too edgy, nervous, for lack of a better term. Like the overthrow of Carter, the overthrow of Keenan. 90% of the time he hits those guys right on.
yeah,
Right on
I
the
said
button.
the same thing. Even maybe 98, 99 out of 100 times. Those are throws we've seen him hit at
He
Oklahoma,
was hurt.
at
If you look, when
USC.
you go back and you look at him, he didn't have to hurry him, but he did.
Yep. And someone said earlier, I think it was Key who said something along the lines of Caleb was lying when he said he doesn't get nervous. I won't go that far. Maybe Caleb doesn't think he got nervous, and maybe to him he wasn't nervous, but was he pressing? Was his adrenaline more juiced up than normally? Yes, yes, and yes. And he wasn't himself in that game, and I think he's going to bounce back. I would say, to answer Squeegee's question here, great question, Squeegee. I think it could take even more than a few games. I think his whole rookie season is something that you could see ups and downs. He could come out and throw for 300 yards this week, and then next week against the Colts have another inconsistent performance. There's going to be highs and there's going to be lows his rookie season. I'm not going to overreact to any of them, but yes, I will. I think that's why I mentioned the Panthers game. I don't like to get ahead of myself, but I think by week 5, if he hasn't broken out yet, that is probably when we're going to see it happen. If it hasn't happened, but I think it could happen this week. I'm confident that this offense is going to look a lot different.
And it could. What happens, and Tennessee did it. They threw a lot at him from a defensive standpoint to confuse him, and a lot of it worked. Okay, teams are going to do that. maybe Houston isn't going to throw as much as far as exotic blitzes and things as much as Tennessee did. But when you've got a rookie there, you're going to try to confuse him. You're going to try to confuse him and to a degree where he's going to make a mistake. Okay, once he starts getting through the league and he's seen everything, then it becomes, well, yeah, I've seen that before. I've seen that before. And part of it, what people don't understand is the film study after the game and leading into the next game.
Mm-hmm.
That helps immensely.
And that's
because now, too, where it's different than the preseason is in preseason, nobody's showing you everything. And you're not playing against top guys all the time. So now the game's at full speed. And you just got to react differently. I'm still a big proponent that they're not playing. They played Caleb about 42, 43 snaps. I think they should have played him at least another 10. And I would have played him in that last game.
Yeah. And I think
probably
that's
2 series.
The hardest thing to scout about a player, especially a quarterback, is always what's between their ears, what's up here. And it's something that you can't, no matter how much film you watch, you can't tell what a player is thinking and what's going on in their head, how they bounce. There's things about quarterbacks that we haven't seen in the last 15 to 20 years, or maybe even my whole life with how a quarterback plays. And Caleb is already showing those things. The way he bounces back after making a mistake or after a bad pass, that is something that I really haven't seen watching any quarterback in my lifetime in Chicago. And I've already seen it from Caleb. He's even killed. And when he makes a mistake, he's going to come right back and try to fire up the defense. You don't see, when you'd see Rex Grossman or Mitch Trubisky or even Justin Fields make a mistake, you would see that deer in the headlights look. I've seen it so many times.
I got to say, you just brought up a thought.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because my stepson and my wife were talking just a little while ago before we started this, and quarterbacks going through the first game. She goes, Rex, something like that. She's a big fan of Rex's. Mm-hmm. And I said, Rex didn't play until the 14th game of his rookie year. Mm-hmm. I said, that is a huge difference from opening the season. Because in his case, he had 13 games to see.
And when he came in, there were no expectations. We were already eliminated.
Right. But the thing is, he came in, we played him, and 2 rookie receivers started, and he had a hell of a game.
Yeah, and they weren't even top flight rookie receivers. I think it was.
That was Justin Gage and Bobby. What's the other guy's
Bobby
name?
Wade.
Yes, Bobby Wade and Justin Gage.
They were 5th and 6th round picks.
Yeah, but they came up big. We win the game. And Rex had a lot of confidence.
And Rex also, I saw one of his first plays. I remember watching that game, and one of the big plays he picked up was on a scramble for a first down. And he scrambled for the first down, dove for it, and then he got up and real quick, right in the defense's face, is giving the first down thing, and all his teammates are pumped up, and the crowd's going crazy. And I was like, I love this kid. Like.
Well, but people don't know is how competitive he was. And there was a story we had. We're going through the draft process. So what was that? There used to be a 3-on-3 league that would go from city to city, basketball league.
Oh, yeah. It was the Big 3 or something. I don't
know. It wasn't the Big 3. That wasn't what it was called, but similar thing.
I remember it.
Yeah. So this is back when he is, might have been in high school or early in his college career. So he's playing. They get to the championship game. His teammates don't show. They were out partying the last night. I'll play him by myself. And he almost won the game, going 3-on-1. That's how competitive he was. And the other thing that people don't know about Rex is I'll stand up for Rex, till I die. And that might be next week for all we know. But when he got hurt, when he shattered his ankle, he had 13 freaking screws put in through his ankle. That took away his game because he's not very big. He's shorter than Caleb.
Oh, yeah.
And on top of being shorter, he had short arms. Caleb has at least got real long arms. So his ability was, he could slide laterally. He could find the open seam and get the ball. Ultra quick release. And in fact, Greg Olson, the coach Greg Olson, who was what a lot of people thought was going to come here from Seattle, but Greg was his first quarterback coach.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Greg was saying, first quarterback coach here.
Not the tight end guys.
Right. But and then he went on to be an offensive coordinator in the league, and he was with Seattle last year. And a lot of people thought he might come with Waldron here, but for some reason he didn't. But anyway, Greg said might have the quickest release I've ever coached.
Okay.
And referring to Rex, he goes, he just gets that ball out of his hand, and he goes, it's effortless. And he had a real strong arm, but when he shattered his ankle, it was all over. We knew it, he knew it, but he tried to play, but he lost his game when that happened to him.
Yeah, he was a guy he wasn't a guy who scrambled for a ton of yards, but he had a ton of mobility in the pocket.
Yeah.
He would run around, and he could throw on the run too with that quick release. I loved Rex. He was a good guy.
Good guy.
Always wish the best for him, man. But Rex was a guy you had to root for him. He was such a competitor, and even though he had some awful games,
another thing people don't know. It was important, when early in his career, it was important for him to try to be a leader, be the first guy in the building, spend a lot of time there. He bought a house almost directly across the street over where Conway Farms golf course is. And there's a housing development. And the Conway Farms is the name of the office park that the Bears facilities in, but there's a golf course across the street, across Route 60, and down about a quarter mile. He bought a house in there. I mean, it took him to get from his driveway to the Bears facility about 4 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And that was it.
Hey, the work paid off. He took us to a Super Bowl, and there's a lot of people who have hated on Rex a lot, but I will always remember.
I'm never gonna, because I like, number one, I like the kid.
Yeah,
I like the kid a lot.
But I mean, to be fair, when we're talking about Caleb Williams, Rex is not anywhere near as talented as Caleb was.
Yeah, Rex was the 22nd. Rex was the 22nd player and the fourth quarterback taken in that draft,
and not even the first pick we took in that draft. That was Michael Haynes.
Yeah, and that was a mistake.
Yeah. I wasn't a big Michael Haynes fan. I wish I could say I liked that one better, but the guy I wanted, I believe it was the cornerback who went to Seahawks, Marcus Trufant. I was such a huge fan.
I like Marcus Trufant. We were set on taking a defensive lineman.
Ooh.
We were set on taking a defensive lineman.
Yeah.
One of the guys we wanted, if you recall, we traded down one spot in that draft because the guy we wanted was gone. And in fairness, a lot of guys in that draft didn't play up to the ability that we thought they were going to play up to. But so he was the next guy. And what we missed, and we held the scout accountable. And in fairness to the scout was that, it was tough getting accurate information out of Penn State, especially when Paterno was there. And that's when Paterno was there. But we didn't have the football character right. He was a great kid. He had no football character. He didn't like the game of football. You'd want him to date your daughter. He's smart, well-spoken. He's probably doing good in life, but he didn't like the game. We didn't know that. He was, and that's on the scout, because the scout's supposed to find that out. But in fairness, you didn't get any information out of Penn State. It was like trying to go to the CIA and trying to get information out of them. Under Joe Paterno, it was impossible.
Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, I thought, in my memory, when I thought about it, I thought Trufant went off the board a couple picks after we took Haynes, but he went off the board before we took Haynes.
He went about 9 or something,
He went 11,
didn't he?
yeah. So
I knew it was somewhere right in there.
He was gone, and then the other guys that went off the board right behind us, the Eagles took Jerome McDougal, another defensive end that turned out to be a bust. Ty Warren, Jimmy Kennedy.
Well, the guy we wanted was Kennedy, and Kennedy turned out to be
he wasn't
another
that great
Penn
either.
State guy.
Yeah,
what?
he went a pick before us, before we traded down. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, great times, great memories there, and I'm so excited about this team's future, Greg. Sunday night, Bears Texans. It's going to be prime time. we'll be back here in 2 weeks, guys. Hopefully, we'll be talking about a 2-0 team or potentially
No, by that time might be
3.
3-0.
Yeah, hopefully
We're going to
3 and
talk
at least
positive.
2-1. We at least want a 2-1
Well,
team.
I'll take that.
Yeah, for sure.
Because then
Any
that
final
because
thoughts, Greg?
the next 2 games are on the road, so that's you're in Houston, and then you got to go to Indy. Indy could be a tough place to play, and it's a big game it's going to be a big game for Indy. It's a big game for Ballard because he began his career here on my staff back in 01. But that's a tough place to play. But at the same time, if Indy loses to Green Bay this week, then you might end up seeing a lot of Bears fans in that stadium.
Man, if Indy loses to Green Bay, you said?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, I could see that. Hey, that's something that could it's a game I might end up going to. We'll see how that one plays out.
Yeah, it's not too far from where you are.
Yeah. As always, Greg, appreciate having you on the show, my man. You're the best. And everyone in the chat, we appreciate you guys. Hit the like button for us, run up some comments, and we'll be back in 2 weeks.
See you later.
And bear down.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate